Madam President, Mr. President, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 12th Lennart Meri conference. My name is Sven Sakov. I am the director of ICDS, the institution, think tank, which is organizing this event. When I went to work for Lennart Meri 23 years ago, exactly 23 years ago, deep in my childhood, I have to say that we were all young, inexperienced, but full of energy. Lennart was the only grown-up in the room, usually, the only experienced person in the room, and what was even stranger, had more energy than people 1/3 of his age. We do miss his wisdom, and we do miss his, those who knew him, his specific sparkle in his eye, mischievous sparkle, when he was about to pull one of his tricks. Those who know what I'm talking about. But I've been certain that if he were to listen to us, I think he would be proud. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great honor. We're blessed with the presence of two presidents, President of Estonia, Ersti Kaljulaid, and another president with Estonian roots. It is a well-known thing in Estonia, but probably not necessarily for all of our international audience, that until the age of 14, President of Austria holds Estonian passport. His roots go to Saaremaa, which is a wonderful island on the west coast of Estonia. And if he would wish so, which I doubt would be the case for a president, he would automatically get, if he wants, Estonian citizenship. But, sir, anytime. And Mr. President, after your speech, and you have been kind enough to take some questions also, we have something for you from archives. There's your father's and your grandfather's IDs, copies, and other archive documents of their family, but a good people were able to assemble from the archives. Mr. President, please, the floor is yours.
Madam President, Prime Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's true, Estonia is the land, the country, the state where my parents not grew up, but where my parents met, married, and lived for more than 20 years after having fled from Soviet Russia after 1917. At the time, I think it is fair to say that in Estonia, 3 languages were spoken. Estonian, of course, the main language, but German traditionally also, and some Russian because of the many refugees coming over from Soviet Russia after the revolution. That was the same in my family, even as I grew up in Tyrol, in Austria, in a valley that, well, it's a very narrow valley. If you've ever been there, to the left side and to the right side, it's already high, this valley, but to the left and the right side, the mountains go up something like 2,000, 2,300 additional meters. So for my parents, this must have been quite a change of ambiente coming from Estonia. So my mother talked to her mother in Estonian, my mother talked to my father in Russian, to me they talked in German, and with my colleagues I talked in a 4th language, that was the local Kaunataala dialect. nobody understands that outside of the Kaunertal. If you don't believe it, I can give you examples afterwards. My mother had an education as a singer and piano player, and she told me that in the 20s, you know, that the time of the silent movies, somebody sitting at the piano and looking up at the thing and improvising or playing something. You have a love scene, you play Chopin, Nocturne perhaps. You have a scene of violence, you do something else, I don't know what she played there. My father graduated from the University of Tartu, and he received his Estonian citizenship from the free and independent Republic of Estonia. So when my parents fled the country after having experienced the terror, the deportations, and the atrocities of Soviet occupation, they took their memories with them, the memories of a free Estonia, but they didn't only take their memories with them, they also took with them their citizenship. I won't go into that in detail, but the fact is that immediately after the end of the war, all of us, the whole, the whole family, were Estonians, had Estonian citizenship, and I must correct you just a little bit. I was 15, not 14, when I got the Austrian citizenship instead of the Estonian. Interesting thing, because as you know, Estonia at the time was a Soviet part of the Soviet Union. So, looking back, I'm still try to imagine how the Estonians managed to have valid passports, you know, outside that were recognized outside of the Soviet Union, not of course within the Soviet Union, but outside. My father had a commercial business, and he had to travel all over Europe, very often to Spain, to France, and to Switzerland, and obviously the passport was recognized and it was considered to be valid. So you can imagine that it means a lot to me personally, politically, to celebrate the 100 years of Estonia's independence right here together with you. Also, I would like to seize this moment to express my great respect to the Estonian people and to the generations before you for having believed in an independent, democratic, free Estonia over all those years, difficult years, for more than 100 years now. Against the odds, against all odds of war, tyranny, and suppression. Estonians, I think, share the understanding of a united Europe, a European Union not directed against nation states, but a union that combines the variety of cultures and nations under a sort of an umbrella, that provides solidarity and security. The great Lennart Meri, whose legacy is honored by this conference, said in March 1991, shortly before Estonia became independent again, I quote, "Europe for me is not just a continent, but a philosophical, ethical, political, and an economic program, and Estonia has always been an inextricable part of this program," unquote. Lennart Meri's idea of Europe was renewed in a sense in 2011 by the then Estonian Prime Minister Andres Ansip, who took the first Estonian euro note from a cash machine in Tallinn and said, "The euro is first and foremost a guarantor of our security." An interesting statement. Let us recall, in 2011, the euro crisis was at its peak. Only few people at the time wanted to bet on the future of the common currency. Estonia did. They did exactly that. Because for Estonia, I think, the euro was more than just a currency. It was a symbol. It symbolized freedom, security, peace. It was a political program chosen by free will of free people. This is important because, in my eyes, the European Union is not just a single market. Maybe we even put too much emphasis on the common market. The EU is a guarantor for all its citizens to live in a union, and I quote, founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, unquote. That is said in the Treaty of the European Union. Values, respect for human dignity, democracy, the rule of law, and respect for personal human rights. It falls to us to stand up and defend these principles. They are not negotiable, and they are not arbitrary. And nobody knows better, probably, than the Baltic states that these principles have to be defended every day. They cannot be taken for granted. Now, if we try to look into the future, into the next 100 years, I'm convinced that we are looking at a multipolar world where the center will shift towards Asia. The questions, some of the questions, for Europe will be, are we strong, united, and self-confident enough to assert our influence in this new balance of powers? Are we ready to meet challenges from outside the European Union, challenges to our unity, to our freedom, and to our determination? Are we determined enough to defend our human rights, our open societies, and our liberal democracy, and by what means? These are not rhetorical questions, ladies and gentlemen. These are not rhetorical questions in the sense that the answer is simply yes. In these coming years, we will pass the torch of Europe to the next generation, a generation that takes European freedoms for granted. They will find their own solutions to the problems of their time. In the digital age, these might be solutions we are not yet able to imagine. But I think it is our duty to them to raise the awareness for what is at stake if we lose the European Union as we all know it. None of the challenges that our planet is facing can be solved by one nation state alone, be it climate change or migration and its root causes, or digitalization and the implications for the labor market. Only within the European Union we will be able to define and stake out our European interests and defend them globally. This is exactly what is at stake. Nobody can tell how the world might look like in 100 years, but we can make an honest attempt to set the course in the right direction. Of course, there are internal and external powers who will try to divide us and to drag us back into regionalism or small-minded nationalism for the simple reason it weakens each and every one of us. We ought to be prepared to do something against it. The more united we remain in Europe, the stronger we are. Now let me close with a citation by Lennart, from Lennart Meri again. He stressed, "The strength of Europe is not its size. The strength of Europe is its diversity. Yes, but I'd like to add something. I'd like to add, yes, the diversity within the Union is a treasure, a true treasure. And we'll keep our identities as Estonians, Austrians, and so on. But to the outside, we have to act as Europeans. Thank you very much.
President is kind enough to take one or two questions. Shoot up now your hands, or you will miss an opportunity. But I think everyone is at awe. And thank you very much. I think it's a really wonderful thing to see this diverse Europe of yours, in a way, united in your person here at the stage. With all your history, and with that, I really thank you very much, and I will hand over you some documents.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, President.
Thank you. Eesti Vabariik isikutunnistus.
ID card, yes.
Perekonnanimi van der Bellen, ristivo eesnimi Alexander. Thank you.